free, no matter all differences. Peace and understanding. No matter where you come from, no matter your religion, we are one. Let's be together.
From dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day, NTA International is with you in your living room, office, everywhere and anywhere. We provide the company you desire in terms of balanced and up-to-date news, programs and the best of entertainment. Tune in to DSTV channel 251, GoTV channel 91, Preview UK channel 264, or you can download www.visiontv.co.uk. App for iOS or Android. You can also see us on Facebook and YouTube for quality content on the go. NTA International, Africa's window to the world.
Your son-in-law is a criminal, and my job is to take such off the street of Nigeria.
Nigeria's movie industry is becoming a force to reckon with, growing its fan base from 20 million in 2003 to over 100 million.
Africa has stories, Nigeria has stories, because you always hear, but the filmmaker makes you see and feel. It's better for you to tell a Nigerian story today and let the world see than trying to do a film like an American film.
The creativity in the storytelling is attributed to how Nigerians embrace diverse stories. In an accessible way, they utilize English, Pidgin, and other Nigerian dialects.
Oh baby. Oh baby. Okay. My name is Terry Omajo alias Redis Milo. I sit down there, I see you, you fine oh. So I come with do friendship. So
you see us. Don't you recognize your class when you see one?
The storylines have shown that we are possibly in need of each other.
The creative industry in Nigeria is acknowledged and recognized throughout Africa. In spite of this, some say the movie-making industry in particular is not providing enough opportunities for highly specialized talents and skill sets.
This medium is very technical. Now you have a good story, you have good actors. How are they captured? You use light and camera position to create mood. You know, the image speaks louder than words. If you want to portray that somebody is depressed or is not happy, he doesn't need to tell me in his language that he's not happy. If he says he's not happy in his language, I need somebody who understands his language to tell me what he's going through. But essentially, by camera position, by lighting mode and environment production design, I can tell that this person is depressed or is not happy. If I pick that image, I'm going to take it to anywhere in the world, they will know that this person is not happy.
The question now is, can the Nigerian movie industry compare favorably internationally? Perhaps with more originality, more reality, better scripting, and more training locally and internationally. The Nigerian movie industry can move higher still.
Can't be friends. Just
and welcome to another amazing edition of your weekend.
I'm telling you, oh, it has to be heat, it has to be steamy, it has to be hot, but we decided that, somebody has to tell a story that is family oriented. Welcome to another edition of Talking Movies.
News everyone here cared about.
See, when you say plural, you can't call water. You don't excavate water.
This is the #1 program, Gallery. Do you love to gist or gossip?
It's not it is extremely wrong. I love it.
Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Whip and Grill. Welcome to the slant today, where we say it as it is and we get to enjoy ourselves talking about various things that are happening in our society.
One 6-pack.
So your job still remains as the man to protect the woman, to project the woman.
You need to do that.
Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation, with cultural and media influence throughout the entire continent. But it's facing a conservation crisis. Its wildlife and national parks are highly endangered by poaching and illegal logging. It's the epicenter of the illegal trade in ivory and penguin scales.
Federal government approves the fitting quarters for police deputy inspector general.
Federal Executive Council approves use of mother tongue for the first 6 years. Education.
INEC commended for the introduction of technology in the forthcoming general election.
Good Morning Nigeria today, which shall examine renewed commitment to ending HIV and AIDS, plus inclusion of persons with disability in next year's elections.
In 1997, UNAIDS estimated that 30 million adults and children worldwide had HIV, and that each day 16,000 people were newly infected with the virus. This obviously brought about the reshaping of the health sector and a new approach to the infections management. Now, 30 years after the evolution of antiretroviral therapy, human treatment, understanding and management of complex pharmacological issues regarding the disease has stamped the spate of the virus and even projects a promising future for the world.
This is because of increased understanding of the cause of HIV itself, together with global public health initiatives that are driving new treatment approaches with the aim of preventing, controlling, and ultimately eradicating HIV. And coming home to Nigeria, the federal government has indicated that HIV infections have declined from well over 100,000 in 2019 to just about 90,000 in 2021, and that key population treatment centers have also risen from 10, as they were 5 years ago, to well over nearly now 120, with coverage of hundreds of thousands of persons.
Not only that, Kingsley, the federal government explains that as at the end of September 2022, about 1,619,133 persons were in treatment, which is a significant leap when compared to 2017 that has about 838,020 persons on treatment, with treatment sites on the increase. Recently, the Minister of Health, Dr. Sagi Hamire, called for a renewed commitment to ending the spread of HIV and AIDS by the year 2030. He commended Nigeria's HIV response to the epidemic, adding that 98% of people who already knew their status were on treatment, thereby reducing new infections.
Well, as the world commemorates another World AIDS Day, which is today, with the theme Equalize, in a bid to eliminate inequalities that drive the epidemic and impede progress in ending AIDS, and the assumption in some quarters that after a remarkable decline, HIV infection has again started to increase among adults in the last few years. Is there hope for total eradication of HIV and AIDS across the globe? And what has been the outcome of the generational gap measures put in place to halt the spread of the disease? What is Nigeria also doing to end the spread, or at least curtail the spread of the infection by year 2030? Well, these are some of the issues that we'll be examining in the first part of our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today. I would like to welcome you to this edition of the program. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Ian John, joining Kingsley to welcome you to the program. Of course, the second part of the program will look at 2023 election, inclusion of persons with disability. How can we make the situation conducive for the vulnerable ones while exercising their franchise? We will talk more on this in the course of today's program. As usual, Good Morning Nigeria is coming to you live on the network service of the NTA, and we shall bring you a complimentary segment alongside our discussions. So for now, let's take the news highlights with Tessie Omeri. Tessie, good morning to you.
Good morning, yeah, good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians, and here is the morning news. Primary school pupils across Nigeria are now to be taught in languages of their immediate environment, otherwise referred to as mother tongues, in the first 6 years of elementary education. This followed the approval of a new national language policy for the country by the Federal Executive Council. Minister of Education Adamu announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting presided over by President Muhammad Buhari.
According to UNESCO, in the last few years, 29 languages in Nigeria became extinct. Even in Bauchi, I believe there is a language that is spoken by less than 10 people. Since the children are not learning, I believe in the next 20 years, that language will disappear. And once you lose a language, you are losing more than a language. You are losing a whole mindset, a whole world view, a cultural heritage that developed in that.
The federal government has approved over 24.1 billion naira for the construction of a befitting housing accommodation for Deputy Inspectors General, Nigerian Police. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who announced this at a media briefing, said the approval followed a memo to that effect presented by the Ministry of Police Affairs.
Very luxurious apartments will be redeveloped, and 24 of them will be taken by the private sector that provided the funding, while the 15 will be used by the police. all we have offered is our land, and after the expiration of the lease agreement, the entire 39 buildings reverts to the Nigerian police force, and even while the agreement is on, the police is entitled to 1.5% of whatever rent is collected, from the 24 apartments.
And now to electoral matters. The House of Representatives has expressed concern over the staggering 41 cases of arson on INEC facilities recorded in 14 states from February 2019 to May 2021. The House condemns such attacks as they are capable of disrupting the 2023 general elections.
10th November 2022, the Independent National Electoral Commission offices in Abuja South Local Government Area of Ogun State was set ablaze. That on the same day, arsonists and thugs set ablaze the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC building at Okeresi at the South Local Government of Ogun State.
And lack of internal democracy in political parties in Nigeria has been identified as major threat to the country's electoral process. The introduction of technology and other legal framework put in place by the Independent National Electoral Commission are, however, major steps as the country approaches another round of general elections. This is the position of the Inter-Party Advisory Council at a summit in Abuja.
The unfolding events and reports coming from different parts of Nigeria during this campaign period have started to show wrong signals that party leaders and their officials are already acting irresponsibly and in violation of the peace accord.
The actions or inactions of these leaders will have a direct impact on the success or failure of the forthcoming general elections.
The most dangerous threat to our democratic process is a situation where the political parties have become subservient to the ruling government instead of directing the ruling government on what their responsibilities must be to the people.
And for exporters who have been owed export expansion grant between 2007 and 2020, the story coming from the Senate is one that should make them heave a sigh of relief. This is because the legislators have approved 308.4 billion naira for the settlement of those claims. And that's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Yenre and Kingsley after this break. Do have a lovely morning.
The next edition of the PMB Administration Scorecard Series will feature the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed. Date, Thursday, 1st December 2022. Time, 10 a.m. Venue, National Press Center, Radio House, Abuja. The event will be covered live by NTA, FRCN and VON and streamed on the social media handles of the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. Announcer, Mrs. Lydia Shehu Jafia, MNI, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
It's joy to the world.
Oh yeah, it's that time of year again.
FRCN, NTA and Voice of Nigeria Service of 9 Lessons and Carols ushers us into the joyous mood of Christmas.
With beautiful renditions from different choirs that will lift our spirits.
Theme, Fear Not.
Venue, National Christian Center, Abuja.
Date, 4th December 2022.
Time, 3 p.m.
Message giver, His Eminence, Most Reverend Daniel Oko, President, Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN.
Special guest of honor, His Excellency, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, GCON, Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Hosts, Directors General, FRCN, NTA and Voice of Nigeria.
Chief host, Alhaji Lai Muhammad, Minister of Information and Culture.
FRCN, NTA and Voice of Nigeria Service of 9 Lessons and Carols, supported by Christian Association of Nigeria.
Come worship with us as we celebrate Christ, the newborn King.
Be there.
The security situation in Nigeria, political elements, reports
coming in from the States. 2 months ago, it has shown relative peace on many of our highways, such as Abuja, Kaduna, Birnin Gwari, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kaduna.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Please tell me, Wendy. Alright, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's time for us to take some business stories, and we join our correspondent Kunle Adeyeye.
The Nigeria Export Promotion Council (NEPC) recently disclosed that Nigeria's non-oil export has grown to the tune of $3.9 billion in 9 months. This is despite global inflation that is staggering major economies in the world. A development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengo, is advocating for more involvement of science and technology to complement the feats being recorded in the non-oil sector.
Identifying those things that can be able to change the way we do things. We've done rain-fed agriculture. So when you say people should go back to the land, you're not just going back to the same land your fathers planted maybe 100 or 50 years ago. A lot of fresh challenges have come. There has been saline nutrition, there has been desertification, there has been challenges of climate crisis, there has been population implosion, there has been erosions, there has been so much. So, but what you do is that you don't confront new challenges with old ways. Way back in those days, they had their ways of doing things and it worked. But with the world becoming a global village, it's become very important, and imperative that we must begin to think globally.
He said localizing production will address many challenges in the manufacturing sector and improve Nigeria's bilateral relations with other countries when the non-oil export is active. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you, Kunle, for that business news package. Up next is a newspaper review.
All right, newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okolo-Gbaja is right here with us in the studios. Chukwudi, good morning and welcome to this review.
Good to be here again.
Good to have you.
Yeah, we have 3 papers, Daily Trust, The Punch, as well as the Sun newspaper. Let me begin with the Daily Trust newspaper below the nameplate. PDP and APC bicker over arraignment of ex-minister Bilbis. Pupils to be taught in mother tongue. That's according to the federal government. Student who criticized Aisha Buhari remanded in prison. CUPP demands his unconditional release. This story says election violence claims 1,525 lives in 25 years. Boko Haram, IPOB bandits' biggest threat to 2023 polls. That's according to a report. Politicians' excesses pose risk to elections. That's according to an analyst. And then, of course, you have the infographics there on the front page showing a breakdown of security threats to the 2023 elections, almost like a threat analysis. Now, governors abandoning rural areas and building needless flyovers and airports. That's according to the federal government. Troops recover 2 female corpses, rescue 3 victims in Kaduna. Kerosene hits 1,000 naira per litre as food prices soar. Only 33 rapists convicted for over 11,000 cases, according to the federal government. Here.
All right, let's quickly take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. And just below the masthead, we have the boldest headline with the kicker. Fuel scarcity. No planned price hike, says federal government. Queues spread. And the riders, we have there will not be fuel price hike during Yuletide period, says government. NMDPRA assures militarists current stock can last for 34 days. And we also have government can continue subsidy amid diversion. And that's coming from an NNPC source. All right, away from that, just beside the masthead, we have Don's back federal government policy on mother tongue teaching. And above that, we have INEC gears up for elections in Northeast, deploys beavers. The rider, we have Yakubu declares loss of 1,993 ballot boxes, 399 voting. Q3 Kaduna abductees recover 2 corpses. And, oh yes, this made it to the dailies this morning. Aisha Buhari, that's the kicker. Twitter critic remanded in prison. Details is on page 8 of the Punch.
Okay, very quickly, we'll take some headlines from the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun, this story straight away says, governors have no power to stop rallies of opponents. That's according to the Inspector General of Police. Uzodimma Anyim and others list impediments to free and fair election. You have that headline there on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. Also there on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper is the INEC counts losses from incessant attacks, gives way out. Ohaneze insists on Peter Obi, flares insecurity in Southeast. NNPC blames scarcity, that's fuel scarcity, on bad roads. Repairs in Lagos, and oil marketers disagree. And the story there on the mother tongue, we've already taken it from other papers. And lastly, the second list story on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper says, federal government slams governors neglecting fight against poverty, but preferring to build flyovers and airports instead. Chukudi.
Thank you, my brother. I'm looking at election violence claiming about 1,525 lives in 25 years. That figure is frightening, it's scary. And the question is, why do we continue to have a situation that allows people to go on the rampage when the plebiscite, when the choice of people to lead us, is in the offing? One thing I like about this report is that I see it as a preemptive warning. Some of the trainings you and I have attended would tell us about the importance of pre-election reporting during the actual polls, and post-election reporting. That is the best way you can actually approach analyzing the run-up to elections, how it happens, and what happens after it has taken place. I think that we have got to a stage where we should become more preemptive of these rampaging and fatal actions by people who don't seem to have a conscience over certain things. Is it impunity that is responsible for people bringing about election violence? The other time, the last elections, I am not a lawyer, but in the last elections, I complained on Facebook that I saw some ballot boxes reportedly being smashed in Lagos area and all that. Why would that not be part of what we addressed during the little process I think took place after that election? And somebody who was a lawyer told me, Chukudi, forget that. He was an APC person or PDP. I don't know the party now. But he was talking in favor of this party. He said, a judge does not grant that which has not been asked for. And I said, look, are there no laws that are independent of certain happenings? If I go on the rampage and smash ballot boxes, I go on the rampage and cause arson, can I not be prosecuted for arson, for instance? Can I not be prosecuted for vandalism? Are these laws not things we can pursue on their own? Must they be tied to evidence? You know, maybe when Kingsley, adds to what we've just said now, we could have a little insight into the legal implications there. Then quickly, they are adding that Boko Haram IPOB bandits are the biggest threat to 2023 polls. What I can say to this is, do we have enough boots on the ground militarily? Do we have enough boots on the ground in terms of policing? Do we have citizen awareness? Actually, security people will tell you that the first vigilance comes from the citizen. See something, say something, and the talk continues like that. We should all be vigilant and make sure that anything that is likely to pose a threat, likely to bring damage to our aspirations as a people, in terms of free choosing of those who lead us, are met in the book. But I think that is something we should look at. And they're also adding that politicians' successes pose a risk to elections. I am taking this because I want to relate it to the IGP's word on what governors cannot do in terms of inhibiting political rallies by their opponents. Nigerians will say, this one about belly. You begin to hear spurious excuses. You begin to hear things that don't quite meet the senses in terms of they're being believable. They give reasons that I see as flimsy in some cases, and they use those reasons to inhibit rallies by people they feel are not in their political parties. A governor has an immunity. You can't prosecute him while in office. But the police have a job to ensure that the freedom to that rally by the political opponents is something nobody tramples upon, because that does not lead to free and fair polls. That's what I think about that. Then lastly, we are told here that Kano is suspending ban on tricycles. Actually, they distributed about 50 taxis to operators. The ban had been on selected township roads. The managing director of the Kano Road and Transport Agency, Karota Baba, actually said this. I am taking this up in the light of the fact that within Abuja metropolis, there is a ban on, and then I now get to hear that big motorcycles are being crushed when the people are arrested. Now sentiment will drive you to look, why is this happening? That is sentiment, because the law is the law. You have to keep the metropolis as bright and shining as you can. You want to make it the pride of the country, because this is the capital of Nigeria. So there are scenes, there are scenarios, there are sites you don't want to come into the metropolis. But apart from that, the safety of the motorcycle operators should actually be paramount. You must do everything to save lives. Some of these motorcycle operators are people who get on the highway and throw all caution to the wind, to their detriment, and of course, to the peril of whoever they have as their passenger. So the ban, I think, is being lifted. Fine, it salutes efforts to make sure that unemployment does not become the reason criminality, increases maybe in Kano, but we have to also look at why this ban is on in places where we have the ban on. Yes.
All right, Chibudu, thank you. There are at least 3 other stories that I would like us to probably just examine very quickly with the remainder of the time that we have. The first would be the case of the student who is said to have criticized Aisha Buhari. That's Nigeria's first lady. The student has been remanded in prison. And the story has been trending for a while. The name of the student is Aminu Adamu Mohammed. He is said to be a student of the Federal University of Dutse in Jigawa. Now, the point I want to make here, because I know that the matter is sub judice. The story is indicating that the student sent a tweet criticizing, that is the expression, criticizing Mrs. Aisha Buhari, and that is the reason why he has been arrested, detained, and now being tried, and of course he's been remanded in custody, pending, of course, the consideration of the bail application by his counsel. I'm just wondering, look, sometimes we mistake freedom for license. Criticism is not the same thing as a reckless assertion of facts that will border on defamation, civil or criminal. I'll take the liberty while I'm making this comment now to read out the tweet that Aminu Mohammed was said to have sent. Listen, the tweet went viral on June 8th this year. It says the mother, that's to say referring to the first lady, has got fatter by eating masses' money. By any stretch, that is not criticism. When you say, even by innuendo, you say Kingsley is eating people's money or masses' money. Is that criticism? What are the facts that you have stated to buttress that claim? Because they said that opinions are free, but facts are sacred. The fact that you are asserting is that Kingsley, for instance, is eating masses' money. And that you are alleging corruption. You are alleging embezzlement.
In the student's head, because it's not been proved.
Well, the other point to also say, because sometimes, that's why I say that sometimes we mistake freedom or liberty for license. Yes, you can criticize, you can tear down a policy, but don't start making insinuations of allegations of corruption or otherwise when you don't have the facts.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Kingsley.
Sorry, just before you sorry, hold on. Before you ask, I'm sorry to point. I also read the statement by NANS, that is the National Association of Nigerian Students, apologizing on the behalf of XYZ, and I'm wondering, the student, did he tweet on behalf of NANS or on behalf of all students? It takes personal responsibility for it.
I agree totally with you, Kingsley. Of course, such comments, of course, should be guided, especially in a public space like Twitter. But I think now the opinion, or rather the discourse, has shifted from what the student tweeted. Probably he acted out of ignorance. Now, the editorial on the Punch this morning, at the back page of the Punch, I just read a bit of it. Now, the issue is about the fact that, well, he did something wrong. He should have probably been taken in, questioned, and maybe now tried. But there's a report that he was beaten. So what would you say about that part of it?
No, wait a minute. There's a report that he was beaten.
Yes.
So far, I've been training that story. So far, we've not heard from the camp of the First Lady. So the story is still one-sided. And you and I know that what drives our job is all sides all the time. So caution has to come in as to what really transpired. Caution has to come in. Now, going to what you have just said. Right. This man has acted in a very un-African way. Some people call me conservative. The problem with the African person these days, whether it's a lady toning her skin or bleaching, whatever they call it, is that we have acquired runaway ideas from the Western world about how we can talk. Whether you like it or not, there is a way an African is known to talk. We respect our elders. We have decorum. We do not grab a gun, run amok, and start killing people. These are very African things. So to that extent, I think the students acted in an un-African way. But to support what you just said, now that it has happened, what is the process of seeking redress and maybe pulling the ear of this errand board?
And other people.
Hang on a second. The matter is in court. I did say that.
Yeah, it's
the matter is in court.
Yes.
But the point I just wanted to drive at is the claim that this is a criticism. And I'm saying that this doesn't appear from the from the wording of the tweet, doesn't appear to me to be a criticism. It's an assertion of a fact for which you have no proof. I don't want to get into how it's been handled because I don't even have the evidence of that. I'm just talking about what has been done. The other issue, very quickly, because we are pressed for time, is the introduction of mother tongue as a language of instruction
for 6 years.
In the first 6 years, which is basic education, I believe. That's elementary education. Interesting, because this is the first step. The policy has been announced, but the government, I'm sure we're going to have a number of conversations around this issue, what government needs to do, what infrastructure, software and hardware would need to be provided to ensure that at the end of the day, our languages don't become extinct. When I was in elementary school, I recall that in the 1960s, there was a subject we were taught vernacular. Vernacular, it was compulsory. You studied vernacular, but of course other subjects you were taught in English language. But vernacular was there. It was a Edo language. You studied, you read books, written in Edo language and so on and so forth. One, and so on and so forth. Different parts of the body. That way you don't forget the language. So I think it's an important development, but how to implement, which has always been a major challenge in the country, is a matter to be
looked at later. There's a dilemma. Now, it is good in psycholinguistics. We'll tell you that language actually is a window to how the mind works. Even social linguistics as well. So, teaching us in our mother tongue goes a long way in helping cognitive ability. But the problem here is, what about some of these children who were born in Abuja, can't speak any of the native languages within the territory, or their mother or father's language? Do we separate them and teach those people separately in English? They have issues to handle.
Yeah, well, those will be matters around implementation.
And then maybe just to add to that, besides those who live in urban areas who don't understand their mother tongue, what about those who are in the rural areas who don't understand English? And this will be a good excuse for teachers to now continue to teach them in their mother tongue, because some children finish primary school, even get to secondary school, and they can't speak English.
No, English will still be a subject.
I'm just saying that this would, well, yes, it would help a bit, but I'm talking about rural areas now. Now they have license now to continue to speak mother tongue, because we hear of reports of how teachers can't even speak English. So what happens
in the rural areas? These are issues to consider further. As I said, it's a conversation that will be ongoing. Chukudi, would like to thank you for being around this morning. And see you again tomorrow. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our items for conversation.
The Apostolic Church Nigeria Abuja FCT Metropolitan Area, under the chairmanship of Pastor Dr. E.S. Awojide, JP, National Vice President TACN and Lola Territorial Chairman, and Pastor J.O.A. Fadikbe, Abuja FCT Area Superintendent, Metropolitan Area Chairman and Convener, cordially invites the general public to the 4th Annual Convention with the theme, Christ's Return with Appropriate Reward. Date, Friday 2nd to Sunday 4th December 2022. Venue, the Apostolic Church Nigeria Abuja FCT Metropolitan Area Headquarters, Durumi District, Garki, Abuja. Time, Friday 4 p.m., Saturday and Sunday 9 a.m. respectively. Pre-convention revival holds on Sunday 27th to Thursday 1st December 2022 by 5 p.m. each day. Overseer IA Edit Secretary Planning Committee and Pastor DOA Akinyele Convention Committee Chairman announces.
Crude oil thefts, illegal refining of petroleum products, vandalism of pipelines, sea piracy, kidnapping for ransom, militancy and environmental degradation are amongst the potent threats in the south-south zone of Nigeria. Accordingly, Operation Delta Safe is being conducted in the south-south and parts of the southeast geographical zone to protect the nation's oil and gas industries, which is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dssPR@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
Welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation on renewed commitment to ending HIV/AIDS, here's a background report put together by Joseph Otsen.
The 2019 Nigerian National HIV and AIDS Indicator and Impact Survey found 1.9 million people in the country living with HIV and AIDS. With this, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, partners of the nation in the fight against the menace, ranked Nigeria third among countries with highest burden of human immune deficiency virus HIV infection in the world. The figure gave authorities huge concern and made a big statement on the need for high-level collaboration with the global community and renewed action to address the epidemic. United Nations have set a 2030 target on ending HIV and AIDS in the world, and the effort made by the country so far is showing the country is on the right trajectory at meeting the deadline. At the World Press Conference last week, Director General of National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Dr. Garba Aliyu, disclosed that national efforts of sensitization improve access to HIV prevention and treatment services across the country is recording huge success. As at September 2022, he says more than 1.6 million persons are on HIV treatment compared to 838,020 persons back in 2017. Treatment sites also increased from 251 in 2007 to 2,262 in 2020. New HIV infections gradually declined from 103,404 in 2019 to 92,323 in 2021. It was also confirmed that 90% of persons living with HIV in Nigeria now know their status, while 90% of them are on HIV treatment. To the stakeholders, a major boost to ending the disease in the country is the launch of the 62 billion naira HIV trust fund by the federal government early this year, aimed at increasing domestic funding. It is a move authorities say has increased and will continue to improve availability, quality and sustainability of services for HIV treatment, testing and prevention across the country, and improve well-being of citizens. On Good Morning Nigeria, guests are itching to share perspectives whether the country is on the right track.
Many thanks, Joseph Olsen, for that background report. With us in the studios now to discuss issues around HIV/AIDS, let's welcome the Director General of NACA, NACA being the National Agency for the Control of AIDS. It's Dr. Gambo Aliyu. Dr. Aliyu, good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you.
Also here with us in the studios is Abdul Kadri Ibrahim. Abdul Kadri is the National Coordinator of Network of Persons Living with HIV/AIDS in Nigeria. Abdul Kadri, good morning and welcome.
Good morning and thank you.
Okay. All right, let's begin with the Director General of NACA, Dr. Gambo Aliyu. I recall asking this question some time back, probably the last celebration of the World AIDS Day. Is AIDS still an issue in terms of public health concern, either globally or more particularly for us in Nigeria?
AIDS is still an issue as a public health concern globally and locally. It's the longest epidemic we've seen in our lifetime. For the last 40 years, this epidemic has been raging. We have achieved great milestones in managing HIV, but there is no cure, and HIV still kills, especially in people who have the disease but do not know they have, or they know they have but they stay away from our clinics, they stay away from our centers where free medical services are being given. The more that this stays in a person without treatment, the more that this inches closer to making somebody sick and claiming person's life. Unfortunately, HIV still kills.
All right, thank you, Dr. Aliyu. HIV still kills, and looking at the stats, the numbers that we have out there, you say over 1.6 million people in Nigeria receiving treatment, treatment centers have increased and all of that. And I want to look at that with the theme of this year, which says equalize to end AIDS, equal access to treatment and prevention services. Now, these figures, does it include those in the rural areas?
Yes, it does. It does include people in the rural areas as well as urban areas.
Okay, Dr. Aliu, if you say that HIV/AIDS remains a global and local public health concern, why is this still concerning?
It is still concerning because there are population groups where HIV is spreading fast, and this population group, because of one reason or the other, have an equal access to our services, our prevention services and treatment services all over the country. The reasons for that unequal access may be due to stigma and discrimination, marginalization, economic inequalities. It could be cultural, it could be behavioral. Unfortunately, behaviorally, this particular group are at higher risk of acquiring HIV and at exceedingly higher risk of giving HIV to other people. These are men who have sex with men, injection drug users, female sex workers, transgenders, incarcerated individuals, marginalized people, people in IDP camps, people that do not have access to our services, especially mothers, pregnant mothers who have HIV and do not attend our antenatal services.
All right, thank you, Dr. Leo. I'd quickly talk to the National Coordinator of Network of People Living with HIV and AIDS, Abdul Kadri Ibrahim. You just heard the Director General say that the figures of those receiving treatment and all of that includes those in the rural areas and none of that. But I'll quickly let you know what the Minister of Health said a couple of days ago. He talked about the fact that despite the availability of free treatment services, we still have a certain very high number of children living with HIV who are coming to the Minister of Health are difficult to find and place on treatment. So, why is that? And then, what do you think can be done? Because, why I asked him earlier about the 1.6 million people is because, the facts are there that there are certain people in certain parts of this country who do not have access to these, treatments, who do not have even treatment facilities. And then you talk about mothers and then children. So could you just please, enlighten us about, this particular category of people?
Okay, so thank you very much. I think the Honorable Minister of Health is right, and then comparing to also the feedback from the DG of NACA, yes, most people, especially pregnant women at the rural community, usually have difficulties in accessing HIV services, and this is because Nigeria is only depending on international aid to fight HIV and AIDS, while appreciating the government of Nigeria in putting people on treatment from the government commitment. There is still gap, especially at the local communities. For instance, in the local government, we will not really see a facility where antiretroviral treatment are being provided, and access to HIV testing services also, where these mothers will be tested to know either they have or not, and in the event their children or they are positive, then they will be referred to where they have access. So in the absence of that, definitely if a woman is positive, certainly she may not know, and she may give birth to a child and eventually breastfeed, or even during birth, and that child may become infected, and that is why it's still an issue. But one good thing about this is that Nigeria has stepped up, and in the current Global Fund program we are doing, already Nigeria is running an alignment program where Nigerian government is at the driver's seat, and the consensus now is that PMTCT, that's the prevention of mother to child of HIV transmission, which you raised, has become a priority, and it is one of the key indicators that we are pushing as part of this year's World SD slogan, equalized, ensure that everybody received equal services. So by doing that, I'm pretty sure the way the program is designed, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to address some of this gap and then deploy a lot of interventions across those communities where people can receive HIV services adequately.
What is sought to be equalized as the theme for this year's World AIDS Day suggests? Doc?
To equalize access, and this access cut across our prevention and treatment services. Prevention services, knowing about HIV, knowing how to protect yourself from HIV, and knowing about one's HIV status. Testing for HIV has now been simplified in such a way that someone can sit inside his room and test himself and know his HIV status, whether he is HIV positive or HIV negative. It has been that simple of recent days. However, access to treatment services concerning what my friend Abdul, yes, there are equal access of treatment services, perhaps sometimes because of location. And as I said earlier, in some marginalized and vulnerable population because of stigmatization and discrimination. And that stigmatization may be a stigma at the point of service provision, our clinics and hospitals by health workers. It could be stigma from family members, it could be stigma from friends, it could be stigma from community members. Knowing that this person has HIV, people treat that person differently. And what we are saying is that there has been tremendous improvement over the years. If you take this medication now and you follow up and this virus is not seen in your blood, there is no way this virus can leave you to affect another person. That is one. And there is no way this virus can make you sick, less taking your life. However, if somebody has no access or has been denied access and this virus continue to grow in that person, that virus can kill. And it has been killing for the last 40 years. And it's still killing people who have no access, to services, or who have been denied access, or who know they have the services are there, but just cannot feel free or have the courage to go and access those services. And these services are free all over the country. As you have seen, or you said, our treatment size, service size have tremendously increased over 10 times over the last couple of years. From 251 when we started to now over 2,600. So the call is for people to do just two things. One, if you have known your HIV status over the last several years, it doesn't hurt to still know your HIV status today. If you don't know your HIV status and you have never tested yourself for HIV, it is wise and it is very, very important to know your HIV status. And if you know that HIV status, or you find out the status is positive, know that there are remedies or measures already in place that can keep that HIV away and from harming you. And as long as you take this medication, as long as this virus is not seen when it is looked for in the blood, that virus can no longer continue to become a burden in you. However, this can only be achieved if somebody is consistent, if somebody, goes to take this medication, and after giving the medication, person makes it a duty to take it on daily basis for the medicine that is being taken on daily basis, and also to come to our facility every 6 months or every 1 year to look for this virus and see whether it is still there, it's still showing or not showing. The fact that it's not showing doesn't mean it is cured. No, it is there.
I should ask you this, Dr. Aliu, in terms of your advocacy. how much of a challenge is it when you get confronted with at least two sets of attitudes? One, the perception now that HIV/AIDS, or AIDS in particular, is no longer a death sentence. And secondly, you talk about access and testing and presenting the individual for, the individual presenting him or herself for testing. We have an attitude around our environment where ignorance is bliss. You say, no, I don't want to know. Because if you know, then it begins to haunt you all along. So unless there's some compulsory medical test that you will need to go for and that box needs to be ticked, somebody say, no, I don't want to know. At least something will kill somebody, but I don't want to. The person will say he doesn't want to know. So you are lost in the dark. So how do you deal with these attitudes in terms of your advocacy?
Yes, and this attitude is what we are here to change. People should know HIV no longer kills under one condition, that if you know you have it and you're taking medication, you know to fight the virus. But as long as you leave the virus and the virus is fighting you from inside, the virus is certainly going to kill you. So the best thing is just know whether you have the virus or you don't have it. If you have it, then fight the virus and kill the virus. But if you don't fight the virus, then the virus will certainly continue to fight you and it will kill you. There is no doubt about it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Aliyu. You have actually said a lot about, efforts being made and then the progress being made so far, and yes, the challenges that you still have. But I'd like to ask Abdul Kadri. I talked about the numbers earlier, and of course anyone looking at the numbers would want to applaud all those involved. But I want you to tell us specifically, because I can see that there's a decline in the number of cases from 103,000 in 2019 to about 93,000 in 2021. That's massive improvement. Well, Kingsley asked at the beginning if HIV is still a public health concern. And anyone would want to ask that question because the campaigns have reduced drastically on everywhere, in the media, on the streets, even in the hospitals. The campaign has drastically reduced. No more jingles like we used to see those days. So what really, where would you actually place this improvement? The factors responsible for this improvement that we're seeing today, despite the fact that it's no longer in our faces that, HIV is killing, all the jingles everywhere and all of that. So who would you put this great improvement on, or, the group of people, whether the public, government, or the international donors who are supporting the campaign?
So thank you very much. This is collective effort from everyone, ranging from the international partners who are providing support for this equipment for testing and also the drugs for the treatment. The government providing policies, spaces, and guidelines how program could run, including the communities themselves who are out there also to show face. For instance, I'm here and we could see waxing very well. So that's an important thing to know. But looking at the declining, yes, we are seeing a lot of improvement. But the biggest challenge is that you talked about now we are not seeing jingles and yes, because as I said, most of our interventions now and programs are becoming like targeted interventions. Even in the campaigns and the testing, we want to where we feel the issues so that we channel our resources there, and that's why you see decline in some of this. But stigma and discrimination, and most especially the attitude of healthcare workers, is the key driver that make people to find it difficult to really go to facility and access these services, and that is why we are calling for more training, because new people are coming on board from different group of people are contracting HIV. Look like the DG has talked about the key population community. These are very sensitive community people, and they live within our society, and we need to see how we can arrest some of these diseases. Then coming to HIV is no longer a death sentence. Yes, it's no longer a death sentence. The reason for that is because we have everything. We have the drugs, you have the site, nobody is stopping you or preventing you from going. So everything is available. So it's not left for you as an individual to really take that responsibility to go, know your status, and then if you are found to be positive, then automatically enroll in care. So for that, government and partners, as government, if I have this for you and you are finding it difficult to come and take, whose fault? It's your fault. So you need to, as people, to know that it is important and critical for you, because the advantage is that once you are on medication and you achieve suppression, they talked about 90% of people in Nigeria today know their HIV status and about 90% are on treatment. But there is another 90 that were still lagging, the viral load, and that is the co-determinant that really shows the real progress in person or in an infected person. Once you achieve viral suppression, you have no risks whatsoever to transmit HIV to another individual, and that is a plus in our treatment program. And that is why we call it U equals to U. Undetectable is equal to untransmittable. So once you are undetectable and once the viral load is status and is less than 20 copies in your body, then you sought for congratulations, and family members, everybody will be happy around you.
I read recently, I tried to immediately research that while this conversation is going on, of an individual, I'm sure Doc, you probably would have also come across this, who is reputed to have had a system completely free of the virus. I think it's said to be the first individual, whether globally or otherwise. He was HIV positive, and then of course underwent a course of treatment, and the entire body now is said to be free of the virus. Good advice that you have given Abdul Kadri, namely that persons who know their status, have access to treatment, should of course encourage themselves to go and get the access, because the government has provided it. It is not your responsibility to walk in there. But from your members, what are you getting with regard to obedience to the anti-discriminatory law that we have in Nigeria with regard to HIV and AIDS stigmatization? Because you were mentioning some instances a moment ago of healthcare workers, some persons, extras. What are your members telling you about discrimination?
So we are currently running a patient education and empowerment program, and that empowerment is mainly about patient education, trying to address the literacy gap among people living with HIV, irrespective of wherever you are. And we also set up a grievance communication mechanism where an individual who have been stigmatized or discriminated, or his right has been violated by either a healthcare workers or even a community member or even a family member, can just run into our office across the country and report in a very simple way, because we realized that we have this act, but people really find it difficult to understand the content and the power it has or in it that can be able to change a lot of things. Like even the fine issue around confidentiality, all are spelled out there. So what we did was to try and interpret it in a more local language that a layman, even a akara seller, the community will understand, and also say, oh, this is it, okay. If my right has been violated, this is the step I needed to do.
So what are they telling you about the frequency of violation of their rights?
Majorly, it is a verbal abuse, actually, majorly. That, this one has HIV, or maybe from neighbors, and most of this will also come from the facility. You find that somebody is working in a hospital setting. I have an instance myself. recently in Sokoto. But what we are trying to do, we are engaging the process to see how we can limit and identify the gap and call for improvement in terms of training, especially healthcare workers. You can't just employ somebody without giving him or her a training about confidentiality and also place such person in a treatment site where confidentiality is key.
All right.
You understand? So these are some of the issues, and I think we are educating people, empowering them, but majorly is verbal abuse and this side gossip and sometimes stigma from this healthcare, because I know this is the major things that happen and what we usually receive. And then issues around a workplace, like even if somebody, I have recently a lady who was tested positive and then she was sacked from a bank where she's working. So these are some of the instances, and somebody, because he has HIV and then he was declined from assessing admission into a defense college. So these are some of the things. So, and my brother, I don't want to mention that instance also, but we have a lot of cases in that on discrimination.
Okay, as we wrap up now, Dr. Aliyu, I'd like you to respond to the example that Kingsley gave, the fact that someone had HIV and then eventually went for test and there's nothing. Abdulkadir also mentioned that, because he said that you can get to a point where the viral load reduces so much and then you are on, once you are, they can't test the virus, or once the virus is undetectable, then it means you cannot transmit to another person. So I want you to respond to that quickly. Have we gotten to a point where HIV has become like malaria, where you can get treated and be completely free from it? One. Then two, is it possible for us to get to 0 new infections by 2030? What really do we need to do, to get to that point?
Thank you. There are two issues here. There is the issue of cure, which is what he raised, and the issue of viral suppression, which is what we are talking about. Suppress the virus. When you suppress the virus, you keep the virus, localizing it, making sure that the virus doesn't move. But in this case, the virus has been completely eliminated, and there were 3 instances so far globally, and this has to do with some people who have cancer of the blood and they have HIV. They require marrow transplant, and before they were transplanted, the donors that provide marrow for them for transplant are the donors that are naturally resistant to HIV. There are people who are naturally immune to HIV. HIV cannot infect them even when they get exposed to HIV, because the receptor or the path that the virus cling to enter into the cells or the body defense cells is defective, so it doesn't find its way. In those instances, these individuals were transplanted with marrow of this individual that have this receptor defect, and as such, the HIV that is in them is completely eliminated, because that bone marrow that produces those immune cells that have been target of HIV in the past and have HIV are no longer there. These immune cells that have been produced are resistant to HIV, and they can no longer be infiltrated by HIV. So they are completely cured of HIV. That procedure is very intensive, and except somebody has cancer of blood or something like that, you cannot contemplate doing it, and it's highly costly. It takes almost $1 million to do that. So it is not cost effective to take somebody who is well, doesn't have any cancer, doesn't have anything, to subject that person to a procedure that could lead to losing his life. So that's it. There is no cure for HIV, conventional cure now, that we can say, take this medication and you're cured of HIV. However, HIV can be made to disappear from your blood while it is still in you, and limiting its capacity to grow and limiting its capacity to leave the person that has it and affect the loved ones, as well as bring down the body defense mechanism, which serves as a barrier between the individual and all these infections that are around us every day. HIV does that. It takes away this barrier, and once it takes away that barrier, everything now comes in, and before you know it, you see the people highly emaciated, sick, having diarrhea and fever and all sorts of things in his body, and everyone looking at this person will say something is wrong here. Before you know it, people will start gossiping. Is this thing is HIV? If you ask people now in the community, when last did you hear or when last did you see someone dying of HIV? You say, cannot remember, because virtually all people that have known about the status around him are taking medication, and they are looking as fresh tomatoes every day. And if you ask someone, how many times have you seen cases of HIV occupying our hospital beds? Even among the health workers, they will tell you that they don't see them much these days. And this is attributable to the ability of the individuals that are infected, to access our services and utilize our services very well. And once this is done, you will never see someone who has HIV and know that he has HIV when you look at the face of individual, or we hear that HIV has killed this person, or perhaps probably this person is on admission. So that is what we are targeting. That is ending AIDS. Ending AIDS means ending the manifestation of HIV and the complication of HIV. But HIV will still remain in people that have them until they die and die with it. And if along the way we get a cure before then that is fine. The people that are harboring HIV today will now get HIV taken out completely from their body. But we are not there yet.
I'm just wondering, Dr. Gambo, you raised a number of points, but Abu Kadri also reminded us of stigma perpetrated by healthcare givers. How do we deal with that? I mean, if the advocacy is for persons to step up and know their HIV status, and knowing their HIV status, assuming it is positive, to continue to present themselves for treatment on a regular basis, and yet some healthcare givers turn around then now to be the propagators of stigma. How do you deal with this?
It requires continuous training. People require training on privacy and confidentiality, and people need to understand, and healthcare workers should be in the forefront of knowing that individuals have right to their privacy and they have right to their confidentiality, and you have no right to disclose it without their permission. If they permit you to disclose their status to someone, then now you have the right to do so. But if they don't, they have the right to disclose their status to someone that feel like comfortable disclosing, but you have no right, and it's a crime if you do that. So our health workers, I think over time we have done something, and we are now even doing more, because we have a training now that is taking place in virtually all our centers all over the country where HIV clinical services have been provided. And these trainings are part of it. Training on privacy, training on confidentiality. With time, we are very confident that, because there is the gradual decline on that right now, we don't have it as much as we have it in the past. So we're very hopeful if we continue at the rate we're going, we will reach a stage where the core health workers will be telling individuals and will be training their peers that privacy and confidentiality are key, and keeping those rights, is something that is mandatory, and violating them will land somebody to jail.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gambo Aliyu, Director General, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and of course for all that you have made us to know as regards AIDS today. We also want to appreciate the National Coordinator of Network of People Living with HIV and AIDS in Nigeria, NEPLAN, Abdul Kadri Ibrahim. Thank you so much. And yes, happy World AIDS Day. Today is World AIDS Day, December 1. And as we celebrate Equalize to End AIDS, equal access to treatment and prevention services, we wish you the very best. And we hope that next year, when we come to talk about this, the figures would have gone down even more. And maybe we'll be close to zero, right, Doctor?
Sure.
Okay.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll take a break now. When we come back, we shall get into the second part of the discussion, which is on inclusion of persons with disability. Please stay.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads through digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the top of a button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership. Alhaji Mohammed Mitakobi, the Executive National President of Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria.
In 774 local governments will be able to put all our structures in everywhere. I'll be able to bring the retainers members together to reconcile them to come and work for the progress of the association.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space, some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more. Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, abeg, it all old, make it do die, make everybody for rest. To ailing parents, uncles and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles, and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties, and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
The counsel of our fathers. My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
Welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria. I'm the network service of the NTA, and the next discussion is on inclusion of persons with disability. And as the 2023 elections draw near, different stakeholders have been advocating measures to enhance the election and also ensure the inclusion of all eligible Nigerians, including the vulnerable, like people with disabilities. How prepared are Nigerians and INEC to ensure that people with disabilities are not disenfranchised before and during the exercise? That's a focus of discussion at this time around, and joining us to x-ray this issue is the CEO and founder of the Albino Foundation, Mr. Jack Apelli. He's joining us via Zoom from Calabar. Many thanks for joining us, Jake.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. We also have with us in the studio here in Abuja the Assistant Program Manager of the Albino Foundation, Mr. George Dominic. Many thanks for joining us.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, viewers. All right, well, we're glad to have you both for this second conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. Let me begin with Jake Apelli, because I recall that on Good Morning Nigeria, we've focused essentially on persons living with disabilities with regard to their participation in elections. And in some of the off-cycle elections, Jake, you've also been an observer or a monitor in those elections. We've had interactions with you, and now, of course, there's also legislation, that's to say, part of the Electoral Act relating to how to, of course, ensure that there's greater, if not fuller, participation of persons living with disabilities. So what are the issues now ahead of the 2023 elections?
Well, I don't know if you remember my last appearance with you, that's a few years ago. You did ask a very intriguing question. You said, well, you guys are doing a lot of advocacy and ensuring participation of persons with disability, but where are the laws? Well, the answer is that that got me thinking, and we went back and continued strategic advocacy to engage the National Assembly. The result is Section 54, subsection 1 and 2 of the Electoral Act 2022, which now makes it mandatory and legal for persons with disability to participate in the electoral process, not by way of tokenism or doing us a favor, but by law. So first we have the law, which makes it mandatory for INEC to include persons with disability. Two, the community are ready, well sensitized. For the first time in the history of this country, we are going to have 15 persons with disability. I believe 5 in the Senate were contesting to go to the Senate, 8 for House of Representatives, and 3 for state houses of assembly. And so you will agree with me that the work we've done, the support we have gotten from institutions like yours, are paying off handsomely. And so we have the law, we have the policy, and we have the strategic practice. One of them being the introduction of what we call from the foundation Able to Vote, which is a voter education sensitization campaign designed to reduce voter apathy to the barest minimum. We've gone around the zones as much as we have the resources to do. We've covered the 6 geopolitical zones. States are asking for it. Institutions are asking for it. And we will continue to make sure that our community will take advantage of the enabling laws we have, the willingness on the part of INEC to drive inclusivity, the opportunities that the society is given to us. On the other hand, in the foundation, we've designed guidelines for INEC, which is an instrument that we came together as community of persons with disability to formulate. We do have a guideline for the political parties, Because the greatest problem around political parties is their internal democracy, which is not very democratic to accommodate persons with disability. Some political parties have gotten it right, others are trailing behind, but we will not give up. We'll continue until we see it done. And the third is the guideline for inter-security agencies. We recognize these three-tier levels of organs that if we are able to bring them on board, then we will have a smooth sail in our drive for inclusivity in the electoral process. And of course, what can we say? What the likes of NTA has done to bring us where we are today. So we are ready. We are not only asking to be given the opportunity to vote, we are ready to be voted for.
Thank you so much, Jake. Brilliant submission there. Talking about the law, the policy, everything in order and getting ready for the 2023 general elections. But Judge, despite all the positives that Jake has mentioned, one challenge still associated with persons with disabilities is the gap in knowledge. Now, ahead of the 2023 general elections, would you say that this challenge has been addressed, and how?
Yes, so as you heard our CEO said earlier, the Able to Vote campaign, a voter education campaign targeted at PWDs, which was run across the 6 geopolitical zones to bridge that gap of knowledge. Now, it was aimed at reaching persons with disabilities with the information they need. They need to know that this is the provision that has been made for them.
You mean over the 19 million people living with disabilities across the country?
Yeah, so of course we targeted it actually was launched in Abuja here on the 19th of October 2022. And we targeted the 6 geopolitical zones. 19th October Abuja here, North Central. 24th of October Kaduna, which is Northwest, and then 31st of October that's Northeast in Gombe State, and then we move from there to Port Harcourt, that is South on the 7th of November 2022, and from Port Harcourt we went to the Southeast state of Enugu, and then from there we moved to Lagos 21st of November 2022. So you can see a strategic. We targeted persons with disabilities across the states in each of those zones, and they were invited and they came together and we had a discussion. Now this was done in collaboration with INEC. Now INEC informed persons with disabilities about the things put in place, the legal provision for their inclusion in the elections. And of course, INEC has done a lot in that regard. And so of course, persons with disability need to know that this is provided for you, the things that have been put in place so that you can vote seamlessly. Now, so those barriers and those difficulties have been eliminated. They need to know. So that is an effort to bridge the knowledge gap among persons with disabilities when it comes to elections.
I'm wondering that Jake earlier was taking off some of the persons with disabilities who are also seeking election in 2023. What has been the reception that they have received from potential voters in the course of their campaigns?
Yes. We are not only saying, of course I'm a person with disability too, so we are not saying person with disability can vote. We are now saying that beyond being able to vote, person with disability can be elected. They have what it takes to run for offices and win elections. Now, I must tell you the truth that from my experience in interaction with persons with disabilities, the electorate, and of course the candidates who are vying for offices, there is this understanding that it is time for persons with disabilities to also be voted into offices. Now, I'll give you an example. Lois Auta contested for House of Assembly in Kaduna State under APC and ran for primaries. And the community of persons with disabilities, that is the National Association of Persons with Physical Disabilities, organized a press conference in order to create awareness about our candidature. So that's the support that persons with disability who are candidates are getting from the community. They realize that
without them being involved in policy formulation, being involved in decision making, there may not be much that can be achieved. So persons are now coming out, and of course the community is supporting their own to ensure that they get into offices.
And how much the community is supporting we'll get to see when the elections actually get down in February and in March. So we would actually see the figures and see how many people with disabilities will actually get the positions they're vying for. I'll quickly come to you, Jake. Earlier you talked about all the things that are working for people with disabilities and how you're very prepared for the 2023 general elections. Outside people with disabilities, one issue in the minds of many Nigerians at this point, as we prepare for 2023, is the issue of security. I'd like you to dwell specifically on that. What kind of security arrangements, would you like to see for people with disabilities, or what kind of interventions have you sought so far just to ensure that people with disabilities are safe during this process?
Thank you very much. Brilliant question. Well, like the last submission, I did say that as an organization in partnership with the community of persons with disability, and by the way, Saturday is International Day for Persons with Disability, and I want to salute and shout out to all persons with disability in Nigeria as we prepare to do that. With that said, we did develop a guideline, and I want to say that I was surprised the kind of meaningful contribution that I got from various agencies, security agencies, especially a commendable contribution from the Chief of Defense Staff Office, and the quick and swift response that I got from the Chief of Defense Staff. I was taken aback because I never knew they will pay attention to things like that. So we do have a guideline designed for all inter-security agencies, educating them on what the law says for persons with disability. I give you an example, a heartbreaking example, where some security agencies during Ekiti election didn't know that persons with albinism are also part of persons with disability, and when they were coming to take their turn to vote, exercising the provision in the Electoral Act for priority voting, they were turned back. So we have a lot to educate the inter-security agencies. They need to know what the provisions are. They need to know what the practical practices are. What is it that persons with disability require? How can they help them? You will agree with me that once there are security breaches, the people that suffers most are persons with disability. I won't see you when you're trying to wave your hand and asking me to take cover. So I'm most vulnerable. The person in a wheelchair will not be able to run if there are issues. The hard of hearing will not hear at all. The blind will not see at all. Those even with hands will have to struggle because they'll probably, without hands, will not have one way or the other to help themselves, even if they have to hold some rails. So the issue, I agree with you, is a huge, Herculean task when it comes to security. So we are engaging the security agencies to understand the security implications when persons with disability are not adequately catered for. We are in every meeting with INEC that there is an opportunity to address the security agencies, and I want to say particularly about security issues in this country. Our security agencies need to be more proactive than reactive, because oftentimes what we see is a reactive tendencies on the part of the security agencies. Why do you want to wait until something happens before you start running and trying to intervene? Why don't we begin to practice how we can stem those security breaches even before they happen? So intelligence sharing, intelligence gathering, intelligence dissemination to the agencies that need it. And these agencies must stop working against themselves. You have nothing to prove. You don't have to be a DSS to show that you understand the security architecture more than the police. They need to work as a team so that we can solve and seal the issue of insecurity in this country. And this insecurity are flashpoints as we glide towards 2023. I want to also say that no matter what the challenges are, this election will hold. This election will be free, it will be fair, it will be credible, it will be inclusive. It will hold. If we have that optimistic view and practice towards achieving 2023, we will achieve it. Nigerians are a great country. We are very determined people. If we want to do something, we will do it. And that's why people like me turn down several opportunities to be another country's citizen. This is one country that we have. We must passionately protect her integrity. We must passionately protect her sovereignty. This is the job for everyone. And thanks for NTA for all that you're doing. And please keep doing it, even when no one is patting you on the back. You know, keep doing what you're doing. The country is listening. The whole world is listening. Persons with disability needs to be in a same environment like every other person.
All right, Jacob Pele, thank you very much there for the points that you have raised. I want to stay with you, and of course, if you can make your response a lot briefer so that we can come back to the other guests in the studio before we sign off. Elections are not an end in themselves. Elections are intended to bring in the government, and once you have a government, there's their concern about governance. What kind of messaging is the PWD community getting now from candidates and from political parties in terms of enhancing the advantages that the PWD community currently has? Or is it just business as usual? Is the messaging to the general population? Or is the messaging also being specific to your community? I'm saying this whether at the national level or at the subnational level.
Thank you. You never stop asking intriguing questions. Let me say that, you know, we've been engaging without being political. We are a political institution. Every of my colleague in the office knows that you don't have to belong to any political party. You know, now it's important to say that we're a little bit disappointed because most of the candidates are not speaking or saying anything about what they will do for persons with disability. Their campaigns, some of them, their campaigns are not inclusive. You know, their statements are not inclusive. It's as if we don't matter. And I took to task one presidential candidate, you know, when I read his blueprint, I won't mention the name, and I didn't see anything about disability. And I confronted him, and I said, there's nothing in your blueprint that speaks to inclusivity of persons with disability. You know, anyway, he tried, it's there, but it wasn't. Eventually, I asked him a simple question. Will you make sure that person with disability will be in your cabinet if you win? He jumped at it and said he will. I should bring something he wants to sign, and I will hold him accountable. So, sir, you know, the campaigns are not too many of them are inclusive. Their blueprint or manifesto are not specific on what they will do for persons with disability. And finally, I'll take it back to the candidate. On Wednesday next week, we are bringing all the candidates that will contest this election in a conference called Electability Convergence. We're bringing all of them together so that we can teach them how to campaign, how they can raise funds for their campaign, how they can retweak, if possible, their messaging, and how they can carry themselves. Because three things will make a leader that Nigeria is looking for: competence, character, and capacity.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. Of course, the political parties, like you rightly mentioned, need to do more, and that is clear. Well, I would like to ask George quickly, outside the fact that political parties, INEC, government, everybody needs to play, an active role to ensure that people with disabilities are carried along as far as elections are concerned in this country. How would you respond to, Section 54, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act, which actually allows people with disability to be accompanied, to cast their ballots, and probably help them do the needful during the process. Do you think that this would enable people with disability speak with one voice, looking at things that could play out in that process? Or do you think that there are other ways that people with disability can be part of the election without necessarily having to do that, like maybe find a different way where people with disability can actually vote, so that you're sure that they're actually voting their conscience and nothing is being, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
So if I get you right, you are looking at interferences that will come as a result of helping persons with disability to cast their vote.
Yes.
So of course, we are evolving, we are coming up. Like I said earlier, INEC have been doing their bit in putting things in place based on the requests, advocacies that have been going into it. Of course, the Abuja Foundation have done so much in that regard, and have collaborated with INEC to come up with some of these things. But of course, we hope that we're looking forward to a time that everything will be put in place in such a way that persons with disability could do things unaided. One of the challenges we have in the developing countries is the fact that our infrastructures do not allow room for persons with disability to really on their own do things unaided, but we are getting there. So, but for now, these are the provisions we have. There may be concerns around that, but we can't but do that for now. But when time comes, we believe that time will come when we will be able to have persons with disability cast their vote unaided by anybody.
George, I still would like to ask you the question that I posed to Jake regarding the kind of messaging that the PWD community is getting from the candidates at the national and at the subnational level. It's given some explanation regarding what a candidate promising, oh yes, I will admit and of course engage persons with disability in my cabinet if I win the election. What are you hearing from your community at the subnational level? Because oftentimes we know that neglect at the subnational level is rampant. What are you hearing? Is it the same vibrations that you're getting to hear? Are you making the same pitch as you are making now on a national public broadcast forum as you would at the state level, to say, look, at the state level, we want to see concerns, we want to hear concerns for persons with disability, we also want to see their inclusion in governance after elections or before elections. Let they be included. We're talking about 2023. We know that local government elections have been taking place. Nobody talked about whether there was inclusion or no inclusion, because we know how those local government elections usually are conducted. 99.999%, going to one part. So, what are you hearing from the subnational entities with regard to inclusion of the PWD community in the course of elections and post-elections?
Yes, so that's one concern we really have in terms of the inclusion of persons with disabilities at every level. The truth is that up to now, a lot needs to be done concerning the inclusion of persons with disabilities, even at the local level. That is the target of our Able to Vote campaign. Our Able to Vote campaign now has become a brand of its own. So it's not going to just be at the national level. We are taking it down to the state level, down to the local government level, so that this awareness will be created everywhere, even at the grassroots level, and so that person with disability will come up and understand that they have a right, to this thing. They are part of the society, and they should be involved in development. You can't talk about development without talking about politics and elections. Now, of course, the 3rd December is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and the theme for this year is transformative solutions to include, for inclusive development. And so we can't talk about development without talking about politics and elections. And so right now, states are beginning to take ownership at the local level. SEC, we are engaging with SEC to ensure that they are also, get involved in this so that we can take it down to the grassroots, down to the local government, everybody involved. This is a stakeholder thing. This is not just for persons with disabilities. What we're talking about, inclusion is not just about persons with disabilities, it's about our society. It's about development. Everybody should be involved. Everybody, you don't have to have a disability for you to be a part of all of these issues. So we are going down there. A lot needs to be done, and we are working at it to ensure that is achieved.
All right, George, thanks. And Jake, also thanks. We're not signing you up just yet. We want to take an excerpt from a statement issued by the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, on measures being in place to ensure the inclusion of persons with disabilities in the course of the 2023 elections.
The law has enabled the Commission to deploy technology in elections, and is also very strong on inclusivity, particularly for persons living with disabilities. Provision of assistive devices for persons living with disability is now a legal requirement as far as the resources permit. And we have been, as a commission, been deploying some of these assistive devices in the off-season elections. For instance, for the visually impaired, we have introduced the Braille ballot guide that will enable them to vote unassisted in elections. And for those suffering from albinism, we introduced the magnifying glasses. And for the deaf, we have posters.
All right, that was the INEC chairman speaking on aspects of inclusivity for members of the PWD community in the 2023 elections. Jake, you heard the chairman of INEC there. Your thoughts, briefly.
Yeah, but first and foremost, I want to say that, yes, the chairman is absolutely correct, and it's true that with the support of the Albino Foundation, INEC is acquiring magnifying glasses. Not that we're buying it for them, but we recommend it, and I want to really commend Professor Mahmoud, because Professor Mahmoud insisted that Albino Foundation must sign off on the magnifying glasses, and it's been used in Ekiti, and it was globally endorsed. People love it. But real quick, the issue of community-based engagement when it comes to electoral process, especially persons with disability. So I am here in Calabar, and I'm meeting with the chairman of SEC and all his commissioners. We're going around meeting with critical stakeholders just to sensitize them of what the law says about inclusion and how they can be included. I am very community oriented. I want to see democracy trickle down to the hamlets in this country where my legs can carry me to. And so we will continue to do that, continue to engage, and that's why we need NTA. You have the reach that most other media houses don't reach. You can get into the local entities, the local communities. That's why we are on today, just to further sensitize our community of what we can do. That not only will our vote count, nor our voice count, our vote must count. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. Because of time, we may have to leave it at that point. Thank you so much, Jake Apele, the CEO and founder of Albino Foundation, for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jake. And of course, thank you, Mr. George Dominic, the Assistant Program Manager of the Albino Foundation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
It's about time to talk sports, and I'm sure that Kingsley has been keeping up with the World Cup. And
yes, but I'm not a reporter of the sports story at this time. I mean, I have, just before we take the sports, I have my own views about sometimes the quality of officiating and some of the matches that we have seen, at least in the round robin stages. Argentina, that lost its first match to Saudi Arabia, has qualified for the next round, defeating Poland by 2-0. But I thought that the penalty that was awarded against Poland on account of an alleged foul on Lionel Messi was undeserved. And happily, the Polish goalkeeper stopped that penalty. And I thought also the equalizer by Griezmann against Tunisia ought to have been allowed as an equalizer. Tunisia won big, defeating the defending champions France by 1-0. But of course, Tunisia is already out of the World Cup. Exactly. Let's hear more from our sports crew.